Recruiting is about to pick up in March in a big way. Who are going to be some of the most important visitors and most important targets for our Miami Hurricanes?
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno, your host. I'm a University of Miami alumnus, longtime South Florida sports radio vet, and writer for allhurricanes.com. Thank you so much to the everydayers for making this your first or second listen today. We love you guys. We're free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today. You'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Joined now by such a good friend of mine and a good friend of ours. This guy has been just absolutely crushing it with the content in the interviews at Canes Insight. Brad Tejeda is with us. Brad, you're looking fantastic, sir. As we're, 6 months and change away from football season. How are you?
Great, man. Can't complain at all, man. Thank you for having me as always, man. Talking some Canes football recruiting. As you know, it's starting to pick up here a little bit. So we'll be talking about some few targets. But thank you, man. Always a pleasure talking football with you, brother.
Yeah, one of the prospects I wanted to start with, and you and Peter Ariz at Canes Insight had a good interview with him within the last week, is running back Alvin Henderson, 4-star. He's out of the state of Alabama, so we know obviously Auburn is pushing hard. I'm sure Bama is and will be as well. Miami's been right in there for Alvin Henderson. I'd love your take, Brad, because you've spoken to this young man in person. How do you feel Miami is trending for Alvin Henderson?
Yeah, I got to say, man, first and foremost, when you talk about recruits in this day and age, there's a lot of different head coaches, a lot of different schools that are coming at these young men. And for this young man in particular to know the awareness of what's going on behind the scenes of the Miami football program, not just one or two guys that are, recruiting him as far as a position coach, but he knows the in and outs of what's going on now and what's coming in the future for Miami. So he is very aware of the surroundings and the fact that him and his mother in particular put a lot of time and effort into the University of Miami before and after getting that running back coach, which I'll talk a little bit about. Shows a lot, right? But when you talk about Alvin A-Train Henderson, like you mentioned, coming from Alabama, he's back-to-back running back player of the year, 1A. This guy had 61 touchdowns in just 14 games last year. He's one of the best overall players in the nation, and Miami's right there at the top of his list. But when I spoke to him a few times, actually, he talked a lot about how when Coach Harris first talked to him coming on that visit, he pretty much told him straight up, hey, whether I'm here or not, Miami is the best fit for you. So that really played a big role as far as honesty and just being straight up forward with him. The following day he woke up to the news. Coach Harris ended up getting a better promotion job over at UCF. And, him and his mom still went on that visit to Miami. And, one coach in particular, shout out to Coach D-Train. I know the fans, show him love whenever we get that bat signal. But Alvin really said that Coach D-Train played a huge role and continues to play a huge role in his recruitment, just making him feel at home and just anything and everything him and his family need from top to bottom, whether it was in Coral Gables or when he's back at home. D-Train really makes him feel at home, and along with Coach Field and Coach Varner as well. But this is a young man that plans to visit Miami a couple more times, and Miami's at the top of this list for him. And I truly believe that the approach that Coach Mario Cristobal has done with this young man, he really said, quote, there were only two coaches that have ever recruited him and made the pitch where it wasn't, what do we need to do to get you to our program? It's, I'm going to show you what we are going to do for you and your family to change your life to be a part of this program. And Mario Cristobal was one of two coaches to do that. And that's really, set him apart from the other coaches. And I expect Miami to be heavily involved to the end.
That's tremendous. And by the way, I thought that was an excellent part of the interview that you referenced, talking about, the transition from Coach Tim Harris. And let me shout out Coach Harris, because classy, like the way that he handled that, because I'm sure when he was doing that meeting with Alvin, he had a pretty good idea. I'm not going to be with Miami tomorrow. Like I'm probably going to take that job with UCF, and was still recruiting positively for Miami and creating good impressions. So shout out to Coach Harris. Very, very classy the way he handled himself on the way out. Now obviously you mentioned the coaches during that transition time, D-Train being one that really stands out. But what are the impressions you get of Matt Merritt so far, who's obviously just officially started within the past week or so at Miami? And I know he's already doing a ton of recruiting. That's the new running backs coach.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, the mentality he brings to the table. I think, some of the new coaches that we brought on, just their mindset. They're all about making these players great and just getting the most out of the opportunity out of each and every player. So I think we're going to push guys to new limits. And I think that's good that we have some guys that still want to come here and prove themselves, right? They're not coming here on cruise control or with just a perfect resume where they don't really have to bring much to the table. They're just here to get a paycheck. That's not the case for pretty much almost every guy on this staff. So that's what you like to see. And I think you also see with Coach Merritt, he's got an eye for what he's looking for, right? It seems like at every position group, we kind of have a category of what we're looking for. And with Coach Merritt, we're looking for speed with some of the most recent offers with Pringle. And we also had Mills out of Tennessee as well, and a couple other guys. You're obviously seeing that we're going back to the speed role at running back. We got to make sure that guy is a burner that could change the game and take things to the next level and be a huge difference maker. And that was another thing that Alvin, kind of said in a recent interview as well, that, they were pretty straight up and honest with him that we only have one or two guys that could really take it the distance currently in the running back room. So we need to bring more playmakers that can take it, to 6. And Alvin is that guy.
Let's talk wide receivers, which is another position of emphasis. And Kevin Beard is one of the hardest working recruiters on any staff in the country. And I know a player you wanted to talk about is a show favorite of ours, and that's Vernell Brown. Trey, he goes by because he's the third. Vernell Brown, the third, goes by Trey out of Orlando Jones High School. Anything you could tell me about where Miami's trending for him?
With this one in particular, I think Miami has done a very good job at making sure Vernell Brown feels like priority number one, and that they do great job at communication, not just one coach, but all the coaches on staff to show him just a lot of love. And I think Miami is going to be there till the end. And I think it's going to be probably a Miami-Florida battle. I think all 3 schools in the state of Florida are doing a very good job with Vernell Brown. He's doing a great job in 7-on-7. And as you know, his senior year over at Orlando Jones, where Malik Bryant once was playing high school football at, which we were able to land against Florida. So this will be another battle to watch for at the end. As we know, his father went to Florida. So that's going to be a close one. But I hope Miami lands Vernell Brown, because that is one wide receiver at the top of my list. And I know he's at the top of Miami's list as well. And not only is he a wide receiver, Alex, but he's probably the best athlete out there in the country. He could play all 3 roles. He could play offense, he could play defense, and he's an elite returner as well. So this is a guy that could bring a lot of dynamics to the table.
Tight end Miami has their eyes on is Luka Gilbert out of Westchester, Ohio. 6'7", 233 pounds. I think Gabby put him in his very early mock class of 2025. So there must be some positive vibes. Do you share those positive vibes on Gilbert?
Yeah, we got to speak to Luka about a week and a half ago, and I'm going to be honest with you. Before the interview, I didn't really know much about him. Just turning on his huddle tape, I thought he was just one of these average guys, and I wanted to hear from him. And I tell you one thing: as soon as we got done with the interview, Alex, he was probably one of my favorite recruits in this class.
Good.
The mentality and the mindset that this young man carries, it's almost like Mario Cristobal had like a son that lived over in Westchester, Ohio, because the way this young man approaches the game of football from a mindset standpoint and just wanting to be physical. Usually when you see a guy that's 6'7", plays a lot of basketball and just started playing football in the last few years, it's like, all right, he's got the length, but does he really like to hit? Does he like to block? Those are his 2 favorite things. He has no problem getting the guy on his shoulder pads and taking him the distance. And he's working on his route running right now and being a little bit more diverse, because as he knows, you got to be able to be a playmaker catching the football as well. But Miami is very high on his list. He will be making at least 2 more stops to Coral Gables, one on an unofficial and one for an official visit. He plans to watch a few practices for Miami as well. So that seems to be trending for a very good direction with Miami. As we know, there's a few other targets at the tight end position that we're going after as well. But I think Luka Gilbert fits the mold of what we're looking for, and I would love for him to be a Hurricane when it's all said and done.
More prospects we want to talk about here with Brad Tejeda, a player who's committed to Oregon. Miami can work on a flip, and a player who is currently committed to Miami, but it's been making us sweat a little bit with, some visits to other schools, the way he talks about other schools. So, guys, we have a lot more to come. I want to get Brad's take on position battles in spring as well. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on Locked On Canes. And I'm only getting started on FanDuel. Winning money, betting money, having a great time during this NBA season. And of course, college basketball, the tournament is coming up. You can get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. You can bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same game parlays. Guys, the live betting is a game changer because sometimes you like to see how the first few minutes go before you commit to a side. There are exclusive props. You can get these Miami Heat player props, so much more. All you have to do is visit fanduel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. We are also proudly brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs is where you might see Billy Napier after August 31st. He may have to spruce up that profile a little bit. At the start of the new year, every small business owner has been asking themselves the same question. What's the one move I can make that'll take my business to the next level in 2024? LinkedIn Jobs knows that your success all depends on the team you surround yourself with. That's why LinkedIn Jobs has created the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. It's not just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have that many qualified candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn also knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats that you might not have the time or resources to hire. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first and second listen and your first and second watch today. We're free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Brad Tejeda from Canes Insight is with us. So, Brad, I'm a huge fan of 4-star linebacker Elijah Melendez, and I hope he sticks in this class for Miami. He's made us sweat. Hey, listen, I don't fault any recruit for conducting their business, right? It's not a one size fits all. Certain guys shut it down. Other guys like to keep taking visits, keep their options open. It seems like Melendez has been in the keep your options open category. Do you have anything on him and where Miami stands?
Yeah, Alex, Elijah's another young man I've been able to talk to as well. And this is a guy that he knows he's one of the top linebackers in the nation. His recruitment's really blown up, especially in the last 6 to 8 months. And Miami continues to make sure he knows that he is the top priority, even though he is committed to Miami currently. And as we know, you got to recruit these young men that are currently in your class just as tough as going after someone that is either not committed to another program or just committed to another program, especially in this day and age. And Miami does a very good job at doing that. But I think Elijah and his family know in particular how much they are important to Miami. And I think this is just a young man that's enjoying his process. And just a quick little nugget, one thing I was able to talk to Alvin Henderson about in particular were some of the guys that he's been able to talk to on some of these visits, and then just about Miami in general. He brought up Elijah Melendez, and what he said was that Elijah's been in his ear for quite a while now about committing to Miami.
I
So
love
even
that.
even though Elijah is taking these visits to other programs, it does seem like Elijah is trying to recruit other guys on board as well. So that seems to be a very good sign for us. And I think Elijah, he fits the mold of what we're looking for at linebacker at the University of Miami. And I think we're going to end up keeping that young man in this class, and he'll be an ambassador going forward.
Dude, that is all. That makes me really happy to hear that about Elijah being an ambassador and getting in Alvin Henderson's ear. And listen, obviously, sometimes you worry about losing your own commits. Other times, you're trying to take commits away from other places, and that's what Miami is trying to do with Dallas Wilson, 4-star wide receiver out of Tampa Bay Tech. He's been committed for about a month and a half to Oregon. Now, Eugene, Oregon is a long way away from Tampa, Florida. I wouldn't mind keeping Dallas Wilson a little closer to home.
Absolutely. This is a young man out of Tampa Bay Tech, right out here in the state of Florida. 6'3", 185. He certainly fits the mold of what we're looking for at that wide receiver one type of guy. Couple names that come to mind that Miami is really trying to target and make a priority is him and also Jamie French as well, as we know.
Yes.
But I think Jamie French is a wide receiver that, if you're being realistic at this point, he's probably going to go elsewhere. But I think Dallas Wilson is a guy right now that you can really make that top guy in your wide receiver room for this 2025 class. And I think he could be, you pair him with a Vernell Brown. That's a really good 1-2 punch because when you look at this wide receiver board, you got to look outside, just your backyard. You got guys like Cortez Mills, Nyshawn Montgomery, and Kobe Howard. Me in particular, I don't think you probably land any of those guys, maybe just one. So that kind of leads you, to making sure you shore up some of these Vernell Browns and Dallas Wilson's type of guys. There's also a young man in Tyler Williams as well. That is going to be another name to look out for. But I think with Dallas Wilson in particular, you can never count out Mario trying to flip these guys. And certainly, him committed to Oregon. If there's any coach in the country that knows, the ins and outs of what deficits Oregon is battling, it's the prior coach in Mario Cristobal. So you got to have that one in your pocket. And I think we are going to do a good job and hopefully getting him to flip. As long as we do some productive stuff on the football field this year, I think we're going to be okay. And we could land at least 2 or 3 of these guys we're talking about.
Well said. We started doing this on our earlier episode today. For the next week, we're really previewing spring football, which starts on March 4th, talking position battles. If anyone missed our morning episode today, we went deep on the wide receiver room. And tomorrow we're going to be covering tight ends for sure, and probably quarterbacks as well. So we have a lot coming up. But Brad, for you, what are some of the position battles you're looking most forward to? Because I think certain battles are going to rage spring into fall.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the quarterback position, not necessarily the starting position, with our guy Cam Ward being out here, number one. I expect big things from our guy, but I think that backup position, bringing in a guy in Reese Poffenberger, and then you have, Jakari Brown as well. Seeing that battle to see, who's more hungry, coming into this offseason is really going to tell a lot. And then when you look at the running back room too, we're going to have a few guys out, during spring. So that's going to give a lot of opportunity to some of the young guys like a Christopher Johnson Jr. and also Trevante Citizen. So those two guys in particular, I'm looking for in the spring. The wide receiver room, I think a lot of guys, we're just kind of waiting to see if they could take that next step. If I had to say 1 or 2 guys in the wide receiver room, I'd probably say Isaiah Horton and maybe a Robbie Washington or Ray, just to see how those guys are utilized at the wide receiver room. Tight end, you got to go with Elijah Lofton. I think Elijah Lofton is probably going to be one of the few incoming freshmen that could really be a difference maker right away. I don't know how I forgot JoJo Trader, a wide receiver, but I mean, that's
I would have had you covered if you didn't mention.
I was going to say JoJo Trader, in my opinion, might end up starting when it's all said and done. Yeah. I think he's going to end up being that guy. But tight end position, like I said, Elijah Lofton. O-line, I think the O-line, as far as the starting 5, is pretty much shored up except one position, and that's that left guard / left tackle spot, depending on what they do with Rivers. But I think Samson Okinola, Tommy Kinsler, and Markel Bell are probably the 3 guys to watch going into spring to battle all that out. So I would look for those guys. And then just on the defensive side of the ball, I think some of the younger guys that need to step up, I really want to see what the young linebacker guys do. Wesley Basaint, in my opinion, this is going to be his big year to really prove that he could be that guy at the linebacker with Francisco Mayagoa. So I think Wesley will be a guy, and then just the defensive line as a group. I think everybody's going to be able to flourish and really show what they could bring to the table. But if I had to pick one guy, I think Elijah Alston is really going to be worth the hype, and he could potentially be a Jalen Phillips, Greg Russo type of guy for us this upcoming year.
What do you think, by the way, about Marley Cook? I know the weight room isn't everything, but I'm watching this dude squat 705 pounds, which is the all-time Miami program record. He just set that a couple days ago, 705 pounds. So listen, he comes out of Middle Tennessee. Maybe he needs a little more polish, but when it comes to strength at the line of scrimmage, you can't do much better than that.
It doesn't even surprise me when I was able to, talk to him before. I think it was actually right when he committed, but this guy is country fed strong. I mean, when he's not playing football, he's either cooking something in the kitchen or he's out in the woods trying to, grab squirrel with his bare two hands. This guy will eat anything that has two legs. So I mean, the fact that he's able to squat 705, I doesn't even surprise me. This dude wakes up and just is an animal. He's an animal for sure, man. But I think he's going to do great things for Miami. I think him and CJ Clark are two great additions for the defensive line room. And again, these are guys that you're not having to depend on, right? You still got Ruben Bain, you got Akeem Mesidor, you got guys like Ahmad Moten and Harrison Hunt that want to prove something at this football program as well. So we have a lot of different guys that we're able to use in the mix. So it's gonna be awesome to see, man. This is gonna be one of the deepest defensive line groups in the country, and I'm excited to see what they bring to the table this upcoming season.
And I want everyone to know that we're definitely going to be bringing Brad on, I'm sure, several more times before August 31st. But you want to keep listening and keep your ears out because we're going to be doing it up big in Gainesville. We're going to have a orange and green takeover in that awful city before Miami takes on Florida August 31st. So, Brad, I cannot wait to talk about all the ideas that you're cooking up over there, and I'll see you there in several months.
Absolutely, man. We already got a few things going in place. We already got the venues in order, so
Nice.
we'll be advertising it soon for the fans, man. But we'll have a pregame party the night before at a venue.
Make sure you follow him on X at Tejeda Brad, and make sure you check out all his work at Canes Insight. And every time we bring him here on Locked On, thanks everyone for making us your second listen and second watch today. We'll talk to you tomorrow on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.